So Prime Minister Netanyahu celebrated Israel's, quote, historic victory in its war against Iran. He went on to claim that Iran's nuclear program is useless now. But there are these reports, this preliminary U.S. intelligence assessment showing that Iran's only been set back a few months. Is that success?
Well, I think Israel in this case has been very successful because what those leaked reports, again, anonymous people who are leaking things that have, I think, an obvious political spin to it, but I'll leave that for U.S. people to talk about. When I look at, Iran's nuclear weapons program, we have to look at it holistically and broadly. Not only does Iran not have any of its former facilities intact, not Fordo, not Isfahan, not Natanz, not Arak, none of the important facilities are intact. All of them were hit. We'll still have to see how severely Fordo was hit, but all of the others were hit very severely, and the Atomic Agency has said that. But in addition to that, the masterminds of the Iranian weapons program, 11 super important scientists, are no longer alive, and they are no longer going to be developing weapons at the behest of the Iranian regime. That is decades of knowledge, perhaps even centuries of knowledge and management and experience that are not existent and not attainable anymore. In addition to that, equipment. Israel has been able to strike most of the cascades and the centrifuges and other key components of infrastructure that used to be part of the Iranian nuclear weapons program, but are not anymore. So I think we have to be, it is very tempting to listen to some parts of a report that were leaked for obvious political aims, but we have to look at this holistically. And I think the conservative assessment would be that severe damage has been caused the Iranian weapons program. Perhaps it will take them months, perhaps years. I think it's too early to say. But if I'm an Iranian nuclear or a weapons guy, I'm not happy today because most of those tools have been either destroyed or severely damaged.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out that the Defense Intelligence Agency is just one of several U.S. intelligence agencies. This is only a preliminary intelligence report from one of our defense intelligence agencies. But there are reports that Israeli intelligence is also showing that the underground facilities at Fordo were not destroyed. Israeli intelligence also believes that Iran has secret enrichment sites around the country. That's something that our former Secretary of State said that the U.S. intelligence has long believed. So that raises the question of what exactly the status is of Iran's nuclear program. Destroying it was the primary reason for the attack. And is it successful if Iran still has facilities that are capable of operating and still has nearly 900 pounds of enriched uranium that is now disappeared?
I don't think it has. And again, Elizabeth, I think we should be more cautious when we rely on all kinds of anonymous sources and leaks that are reflected in the media. The issue of enriched material, I've heard solid intel assessments that state exactly the opposite, that the overwhelming majority of that enriched material, almost military-grade enriched uranium, was in fact destroyed, or it is buried under the rubble in Fordo. And one of the reasons why Israel attacked Fordo after the U.S. B-2 bomber strike was to sever the capacity of the Iranians to salvage anything. And I think, in all fairness, if anything should be clear from 12 days of fighting is that Israel had impeccable intel when it comes to who was doing what, where the Iranians were doing it, and who was behind it, who was financing it, and where everything was. And I think a bit of humility for people who are, fast to claim non-success, I think for political reasons, whether it's grudges against President Trump.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.